Okay. I'm a bit nervous, so that you have to take into consideration.
That's so funny because literally, like, 100 people listen to this, and they're all from Rock Island. So
All right. Okay.
you don't
maybe some of them know me or might. Oh, that stupid German is again on air.
Welcome back to the Rock Island Line. I'm your host, Annika Omelia, and today I'm interviewing Heinz Drensler. Heinz was recently visiting for his 60th high school reunion in Rock Island. Heinz came to the United States in 1964 as a German foreign exchange student and spent a year living with my dad and his family, participating in Rock Island life and attending Rock Island High School. While I'm not related to Heinz, he's always felt like family and has made it a point to come back to Rock Island for every high school reunion outside of the COVID year since 1965. Stay tuned to listen to his experience of coming to America, living in Rock Island, and loving this town from a distance all these years later. So Heinz, you've traveled all the way from Germany to be on the Rock Island Line podcast. Is
Okay.
that no? So why are you in town? It wasn't to be on the podcast. I roped you into this, but
All right.
what brings you to the United States?
I was a student at Rock Island High School in 1964-65, and we had our 60th class reunion this weekend, September 27, and that was a reason to come back and celebrate and see classmates again and friends and family. So that's why I'm here.
So you're here for the Rock Island High School 60th class reunion.
Right.
And had you traveled further than anyone else?
This occasion, no, I just came here, just for this particular reason.
I mean, were you the person who had come the farthest out of the guests who were in attendance?
Again, yes, several times before, but again, I was awarded to hold a speech to my classmates, last night, and I was the one with the longest way to get here.
So I've known you my whole life. You were a part of my family before I was a part of my family.
Right.
And went to high school as a foreign exchange student with my dad. My family either calls you Heinzie baby or, brother, basically. You're kind of considered a brother among my dad and his siblings.
Yes.
And so how in the heck did you come from Germany to Rock Island, Illinois? How did it come to be that you came to our town as a foreign exchange student?
That is a long story. I try to make it short. I was born in 1946. That was right after World War I. And Bremen, I was born in Bremen, and Bremen was occupied by the American soldiers after World War II. So the first contact I had as a child was with American soldiers in Bremen. They gave us chewing gums, they gave us cookies, and they were all kind. There were black people, black soldiers, there were white soldiers, they were just nice people. This is my first impression of America. So then my parents had friends, and their son was maybe 6 years older than I, and he went to the United States with a organization called American Field Service, and he came here in 1957 already. And to me, this young guy was like a big brother, and I was there, and he came home from his year in America, and he unpacked his suitcase, and he showed me all these little postcards from Indians, and all told me about, oh, this is such a great country, you have to go there too, Heinz, and you just have to make this, and I will talk your parents into that they sent you over, and this was when I was about 10 years old, and I never forgot about this idea, going to America. And so then finally there was this development in the United States, the change from the Eisenhower era into John F. Kennedy being elected as a president. And he was sort of a figure for the young people in Europe and especially also in Germany that there's some change going on in the United States. And this made me interested in follow this idea. So I applied for American Field Service. This organization was already known in my school. And then I applied. And on the very first day that I had my interview with American Field Service in Bremen was November 22, 1963. And this is some date that everyone will remember. Because when I came home on that very day, in the evening, I saw the news that Kennedy was assassinated. So that was something like, my dream is gone now. This will never going to happen. I will never get to America. The world stood still for a moment. Everybody knew it. But fortunately enough, it
so
went on.
Kennedy, similar to in the United States, Kennedy was a figure of hope and profound change and love and people coming together. And
he was a young president. There was some atmosphere of there is something new to become happening and going to develop. There was civil rights movement was brought on the way, and all these things. And they also swept over to Europe and to Germany. So that was very interesting. And still at that time, going to America was an adventure. See, I've never been out of Germany, maybe for a vacation to Austria once, but that's all. And going over to America in 1964 was, America is so far away. That's a country that sounds like paradise over there. And then it happened. It happened. I was waiting. I had a few more interviews and tests to make, and then finally I got the news in the summer of 1964. You can go to America, and this is your family in Rock Island. And so we got all the information about the family, and and at that time you didn't have any internet. You just couldn't call it or look it up. So we just had to write letters. Telephoning was very expensive from, telephoning to the United States at that time. But somehow I got contact. I wrote a long letter. Here's your AFS student coming to you. And you wrote back. And then it all went. I mean, in August 1964, I entered the Seven Seas, a boat in Rotterdam, and embarked to New York with 900 AFS students from all over Europe. And only 6 chaperones there to watch us. And
900 high school students and 6 chaperones to take you across the ocean to New York.
Yes.
From, oh my gosh.
That was a riot. Although I must say that almost half of the AFS students on that boat got seasick because we had a rough route going over to the United States. Anyway, we took 9 days before we arrived in New York. And here we were, New York. And then AFS did this wonderful job, getting those 900 students on various Greyhound buses in New York. And so those Greyhound buses went all over the United States and distributed those students to those places where they found their host parents. And I had bus number so-and-so embarking to Rock Island. So those 10, 15, or 16, I don't know how many we were, students were put on the bus, and then on we went for 24 hours riding to Rock Island.
Wow.
That's how it happened, yeah.
Yeah, that is, so you leave your country, all you've been able to do is write a letter, you don't really know who's going to be receiving you when you get to Rock Island, you take a boat, you get on a bus, and you find yourself in the city that we now sit in together. An adventure. Yeah. I was really up for an adventure because I didn't really know what's going to happen to me this year. But we were curious. We were just energetic. We just wanted to have this kind of adventure. And so I arrived in Rock Island on a big parking lot. That bus was there, stopping and let out these
maybe 3-4 students. There was another girl going to Kiwani and a Swedish girl who I met also on the boat. You must see that.
Is that
we were,
Anne? Was that
No,
Anne?
that wasn't that Anne. I met Anne too on the boat, but there was another girl. So I met Anne already on the boat, and we just exchanged. We had some organization on the boat, so that students going to the same high school already met on the boat. It was not only chaos and party on the boat. So yes, we met on the boat, and we met a few other students on the boat who were going to the area around here. Off we went. It was on a Sunday afternoon that your grandparents, I must say, your grandparents picked me up on this parking lot. And there was your grandfather, your grandmother, your aunt and uncles. And they took me in their station wagon to their new home on 30th Street in Rock Island.
Right across from the Greek church.
Right, right. So here I was, and I was sitting there in the living room, the entire Morris family around me, and they asked me hundreds of questions, of which I only understood maybe 25. And they put out their records. Do you know the Beatles? Yes. Do you know the Rolling Stones? I can't get no satisfaction. They played the record, and they did not consider that I had about 24 hours on the Greyhound bus behind me. I was a bit tired. So I asked after a while if I could take perhaps a nap.
And how strong is your English at this time?
Well, I had 6 years of school English, and of course, school English is something which you learn. But I never had any time or opportunity to practice English out of school, right? So and English and American is still a bit different.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I didn't understand all the questions, but I tried to at least. And yes, they were all very considerate and helpful. And it took a while before I picked up with the language. And I told you before, it took about 4 or 5 weeks, and I started dreaming in English. I remember this very well. I started counting in English. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was the point when I picked up with the language, at least a little bit.
So they bombard you with questions. Do you know this artist? Do you know about this thing? What do you know?
Do you know this? Do you know that?
And then they let you take a nap. And then what
Yes.
happens when you get up from the nap?
Well, I got up at around maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and my host brother called me and said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to my friends."
Which is my dad, Jeff Morris.
Yes, right. He was my host brother. He's a year younger than I was at that time, and still is. And so I said, "Okay, I'm gonna meet. I come down in a minute." And then I met a few friends outside, and they looked at me, and we stood there, didn't speak very much though, and I said, and then there's one guy just asked me, are you going out for any sports? I said, yes, I practice track and field. And track and field, you run the mile? No, I said, I'm more for the short distance, 100 and 200 meters. Oh yeah, let's run a mile. You want to run a mile? And I said, okay, to myself, I can't say no. If I say no, they will not accept me. I said, okay, let's run a mile. And okay, then get your running shoes. I brought my running shoes with me. And so we went down the Rock Island Stadium and ran a mile. All my friends and me. And
after you've had a 2-week journey from Germany and slept for just a number of hours.
More or less, yes, more or less. But I knew this had to be done, to be accepted, rather. And so then, well, I passed the exam, the first exam at least, yeah. That's how it happened.
And were you joking when you said that one of them had shoes that had lead in the bottom?
Yes. Yes, one of the guys said, I still got these lead weights there, and that's a good exercise. You want to try it? So I said, okay, then give it to me. So I put it in my shoes, and I ran the mile with these lead weights in my shoes.
Lead weights in your shoes. Wow. So they weren't giving you any breaks. They were...
No.
Yeah.
They just wanted to test me out, yeah.
So, and then you just kind of get integrated with this Rock Island family, which is my family, and what was that experience like to live in this house with 4 kids? And
The most wonderful experience I've ever had so far, because I'm a single child, and here I was in a family with 4 brothers and sisters, right? And I was the oldest one, so I had to fight for my share in the family, like everyone else of my brothers and sisters at that time. This is something that I had to learn. So, for instance, if you had come late for dinner at night or in the evening, and there were some pieces of meat or whatever on the table for everyone enough, and you came late, mine was gone. Whereas I asked, where is my sausage or whatever? Oh, I don't know. It's gone. So that's something that I had to learn, right? But it was okay. I survived and I didn't starve. No.
when you were living with my dad's family, did they talk about the Clean Plate Club? Because my dad always talked to us about the Clean Plate Club, that, you know, you had to clear your plate. You had to eat everything that was on your plate.
Not really.
Okay.
I did. I was used that from home anyway. Yes, yes. Another subject which was a sort of a touchy subject was drinking beer, right? At that time, I was 18 already. So, and in Germany, people were just used to drink beer with dinner, and I also started to have a beer when I was 14, 15. And so your parents or your grandparents asked me, do you want to try some beer here? I can let you have a sip. And I said, okay. And then they said, have you ever drunken beer? I said, yes. Well, at home I have beer for dinner. And they were sort of shocked. Maybe we have an alcoholic here in our family. And I said, no, that's quite usual. So they said, no, we don't want you to drink beer while you are here. So that was no problem for me. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to drink any beer, and that's fine, all right. But that's something... But that's a difference between, you know, I was used to having it, and I never drink more than I just enjoyed. I mean, it was something that we had as a normal drink for dinner. Not every day, though. But, I mean, when you get 16, 15 years old, you are eligible to drink a beer. It was different here in the United States. I respected this and didn't drink anything, no.
What was the rhythm of life? You know, what mostly were you doing with the Morse family? What was it different than life in Germany? Was it, did they make you go to church? Did they make you,
yes.
You know, what kind of stuff was going on?
Yes, this was something different. I'm a Protestant, and but I wasn't brought up as a regular church goer, and and the Morris family were active in that church. And they said, well, we are going to church every Sunday morning, and you go with us. And so I never slept long on Sunday morning. I don't remember that I ever slept long on Sunday morning. We were woke up. We had to go to the church at 8:30 in the morning, and then came home by 10 or so, and then that was my Sunday morning. I did this with pleasure. Even if I were sitting maybe in the last bench of the church and telling jokes to other young kids from school, but I went to church, yes. I didn't want to make an issue out of that.
Now, did the Morris kids fight a lot? Were they kind to each other? Were they beaten up on each other?
No, not beaten up, but of course there were fights in the family, yes. I mean, among the kids. See, I had 2 sisters. One of them was 13 at that time, I think. You know who it is.
My Aunt Marcia.
Right. And I shared a room with Jeff and my younger brother John. John was 11 at that time. So we had up in the attic, we had our room. And that was fun, of course. We were making fun of each other at night or in the evening. And of course, we also had fights. And we had almost fights about leaving a piece of cake for me, please. When I come back home, I'll be late here. And you come home, there was no cake anymore. Then maybe there was a box of Coke or whatever, which my host parents left for us. And when I came back home, there was no Coke left. No, it was all gone. But these things happen, I mean, among brothers and sisters. So I said, okay, all right, that's fine. That's just for a year. I will survive that.
And I believe there was no air conditioning in that attic.
Oh, you know about that story? Yeah, there was an air condition on the way up to the attic. But my dad didn't want to put this on. I mean, it was sort of expensive having an air conditioner at that time. And he said, if you put it on, maybe just 15 minutes, that's all. And so it got a little bit hot sometimes in the attic there.
Just hot with three boys sleeping up in the attic together.
Yes, yeah.
And the girls were the princesses.
But the air conditioner wasn't running all night, no. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's, I mean, different from what you do today. Yes, of course.
So what did you, I'm just so curious what my dad was like as a senior in high school. What did you think of him as a person?
The first thing I got to know about him was that he was a famous barbershop singer.
My grandpa, yeah.
Your grandpa, yes. He was a barbershop singer, and he told me about his experience, his music experience, and that I think he even became a world champion in barbershop quartets.
Yeah, he was. He had a group.
He showed me the pictures, and so I knew that he was a famous artist. All right, and he was a very good singer. He used to be a music teacher at Rock Island High School. So, but by the time that he got 4 children, he went out of teaching and became an insurance manager, and then he was elected councilman in Rock Island on the council. So that's the time that I was there. He wasn't home very often at night. He had meetings and appointments, so that he was an very active man. Yes.
Yeah, very busy guy, lots of energy.
Yes,
always
lots
singing
of energy.
and making plans and.
And I mean, my host brother Jeff and we were growing up. We were getting. Well, we had to fight for a few things, and I remember some tough fights between my brother Jeff and his father, because Jeff was going out for football, and he came home when he lost the game. He was angry. He was full of energy, and so there were fights because of that, and you couldn't really talk to him. So it took a while to get him over this loss and all this kind of emotion that he was carrying inside. And there were fights, yes, there were fights, but that's normal family life, of course. When you have 4 children, there are fights.
Yeah, and my dad was kind of an intense, serious person. Well, at least that's how I know him, as kind of studious.
They were strict.
Trying hard. No,
they were strict parents, but they were kind and, of course, had empathy, but they were strict. I mean, with 5 children at home, you have to have rules, and things have to work, and they have to be organized, and there are rules that you have to follow, and of course this had to be, and this is something which I also learned. I was no exception to the family.
Was it different in Germany, like just general family culture or family life?
I never thought about it.
I remember even when Hannes came, and so Hannes is your son who came to the United States to visit, and kids would talk about being able to like ride their bikes all over, and similar, being able to have a beer with friends and be riding their bikes around town, and maybe a little more flexibility and a little more
my parents
being treated like adults at an earlier age. Was that?
My parents trusted me, and I had no problems with rules at home. I was very free to do what I was supposed to do and what I would like to do. And the fact that they let me go to the United States for 1 year will show you that they had faith and trust in me and let me go and let me do this thing. This is something which was unspoken between my parents and myself. I had never any problem with my parents in that. I was doing quite good in school, and I had my activities. I went out for track and field. I was chief editor of the school paper in my school, so I had lots of activities, and my parents were sort of proud of me, yes. And they let me go, and you go and have your experience there. Yeah.
What was Rock Island High School like?
very much different from what I remember. First of all, it was a huge, big school. So many students, more than 1,000 students in one building, rushing from 1 hour to another, from room to room, and a lot of hectic. It was something that I had to get used to.
Very
Really.
loud and bustling.
Really,
and
yes.
Probably thousands of students, I mean, at that time.
Yes.
Because something that's interesting is you were here when Rock Island was really at the height of its population. So mid-1960s.
That's right,
I think
yeah.
our population was around 52,000.
That's right.
We're only at about 36,000 now. So
Yes.
you were here before the factories closed, before, our population declined. You were here during the Civil Rights Movement when places that had been de facto segregated, like restaurants downtown Rock Island, swimming pools, were starting to, with the Civil Rights Movement, be integrated.
Yes.
You were here at a very dynamic time of American life. And
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed this. I mean, I enjoyed school life. See, we were the Swedish girl Anne, whom we talked about in the beginning, who was with me at that time. We both were not, I wouldn't say prominent, but they were special persons. We were representing our countries in the school, and we had to give speeches and so on. We were something special, but I didn't feel like this. I felt like a student at Rock Island High School. So, but I had certain duties. I had to. Also from American Field Service, we were trained to do this and not to do that. I was not allowed to drive a car. I didn't have a driver's license anyway. I was not allowed to play on the football the football team for insurance reasons, although I could kick the ball very, very well from Germany because I was also playing soccer there. So that's something that was okay. But later on in school, I became a member of the track and field team, which was a highlight for me, representing high school as a foreign exchange student. So we even went to the state championships in Illinois.
Wow.
So it was one of my highlights, yeah. And I was awarded a major letter. So all these things happened. So that shows you that I was a normal student, yeah. And that's it.
And the American Field Service had a mission of sorts to,
Yes.
at that time in the world, and bringing people from all these different countries, European countries, but you said Thailand and Vietnam,
Yes.
and what was the mission or the purpose of the American Field Service?
Well, the American Field Service was an organization, I think, established in the First World War for Red Cross-like situation, organizing and caring for wounded soldiers and so on. And after World War II, this organization said we got to do something for the mutual understanding in this world. We got to bring peace in this torn up situation after World War II. And so they said, we set up a program where young people can meet each other. And then they organized this system, that exchange system that they sent students to the United States and to host families to live there, to understand what life is like in America, and telling how life is in their home country. This is the basic. And this, the fact that I'm here now and celebrating my 60th class reunion, so we are talking about 60 years, ever since I was here for the first time. That's a value in itself.
And not only did you come for this reunion, but you've really come every 5 years since you left as an
And not
exchange
only
student.
for the reunions, I came in between. Your parents visited me. I had many friends coming to Germany. So that was developing some mutual understanding. And the final conclusion that we were young people, we were more or less having the same problems all over when we were young and growing up. This is something I met so many fellow students during that year, because when I finished this stay in Rock Island, we went on a bus again students out of this area, maybe 20 students out of this area here, went on a bus for 3 weeks all through the United States. We went through Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York State, and every other day we stayed with another American family. So that when we finally arrived in Washington, we were 3,500 AFS students in that year, right? And they all came together in 1 week in Washington under the Washington Monument. Their flags were all distributed over the lawn around the Washington Monument. So that's when we all met. We came to Washington after 3 weeks and met under the German flag. The Swedish students met under the Swedish flags, the French under the French flag, and so on. So we came back together after that year and exchanged our experience that we had. The experience with other students with whom we got to know. See, I had the Swedish student with me at Rock Island High School, and we exchanged, of course, our experience already during the year. We helped us out of situations where we might have had difficulties, and so on and so on. But the conclusion was that we all had more or less the same problems and all over the world. So we were just young people.
Young people with a common experience of being that age. And, I've heard you talk about over the years just that you loved our family loved you, that
yes,
it was the connections to this, not necessarily the place, but the people that you met here that have lasted a lifetime in your heart and have.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. I don't think this is unique. I mean, this happens to many other American field service students who spent a year here in their host families, and you have to do something for it too. I mean, it's just not taking the experience and, okay, done, like on a bucket list. No, it is something that is unique. And as I told you before, this year here was the most influential year for me in my life. And it still is. It still is. That you can see, I come here, I'm 79 years old now, and I'm as excited as 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And coming home is like, Rock Island hasn't changed so much during the last 60 years. That makes it easier to feel at home, because it is like homecoming a little bit, yes.
Yeah, we were at the tennis courts. My daughter had practice the other night, and you were reflecting on, the stadium is very much the same, and the light posts that light up the field.
Oh, yeah, the light posts, they had some special meaning to me, too.
Yeah, what is that meaning?
Well, when school was out after the year, we had about 3 weeks, and we were just goofing around, and I was adapted to the life in Rock Island, so I was not afraid anymore being kicked out of school or sent home because I did something bad. Then your father and I had this boring day, and he had a motorcycle and said, let's just go around a little bit. So we went down to the stadium, and I said, it would be nice to get up the light towers there, and I have my photo apparatus with me. I could take some nice pictures from up there. So we climbed up the the floodlight pole, and up we were. And I still remember, I have a photo at home where we are up this pole and looked over the stadium, and nobody really cared about it. I mean, didn't get caught, and I think we didn't even know what we were doing at that time.
Oh my gosh! If you go home and have that photo, I hope you can snap a picture of it and send it to me. I would love that.
Yes, I will, of course.
And what was your impression of the United States at the end of the trip? Like, what a great place, or there's a lot of.
Well, of course, I'm not talking about politics. See, the Vietnam War was getting hot during that period, 1964-65. America or the United States were involved in the Vietnam War a lot earlier, but then at that time there were some incidents going on that escalated the war in Vietnam, and this has become to me very conscious after I got to know that some students, classmates of mine, were killed already in 1967 in Vietnam. So they didn't even have a chance to live their life. They were being sent at the age of 20, 21 to Vietnam to serve for their country, and then got killed. This is something that, of course, changed my mind a little bit. And later on, when I started to study in Hamburg, you become a lot more critical about things. Apart from my personal relationship to my host family, to my brothers and sisters here, you become critical about what was going on the political level in the United States, and you ask yourself, what do the U.S. forces have to do in Vietnam? So that's something that think about, and
you could think about those classmates you had, also this personal connection
yes,
to
sure. Yes.
these real lives
yes,
that were
of course,
affected
yes.
by conflict.
Yes,
and,
of course. I was
and
affected.
you were
Yes.
a young man.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in societies our teenagers and college age people, like in their 20s, often can be a conscience for a society around right and wrong. They're not mired in the politics or the history of conflict. They're more eyes open to just what's right and what's wrong, or more clear-eyed around injustice. Or
yes, as I said, I became critical, and but this was just maybe for a couple of years that you say, and then there were always my personal relationships to my friends over here, which had nothing to do with what was going on a higher political level. I came here in 1975. I came here. Your parents visited. Your father visited us in 1968, for instance, with his parents, your grandparents, and I went over again, and so this relationship.
And you saw my parents before they even lived in Rock Island. Didn't you go see them in New Orleans when they were there? And,
yes. In 1975, I married in 1975, and I made some honeymoon trip to the United States and met your parents again in New Orleans when your dad had his internship as a doctor, and then your brothers and sisters your brothers were born there already, little boys then, and we met them there and had a great time, and we then went to Rock Island here and met your grandmother and your aunt, who were still living in the same place where I spent the year. So that was normal. It was just visiting family, right? And those ties never were affected by my critical view on the United States, right?
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
And maybe this is kind of like, I don't know, Euro-American centric, but it seems like people abroad pay a little bit of attention to what's going on in the United States. And whereas sometimes I don't think Americans are necessarily paying a lot of attention to what's going on in the rest of the world as much as other countries are paying attention to us, or is that a weird American view that our role in the world
well, you
over
always
time has
you
been...
always played an important role in the world, of course, as one of the strongest economical forces, and of course we watch and the ties were always there between Europe and the United States, and things have changed today, of course. Right, that is true, but I don't want to talk about politics, of course, but. Of course, we are critical about what's going on in the United States right now and also before. But we still have our ties. We have our allied ties throughout the years. We have NATO. We have all these things. And we do not doubt that we still have Americans on our side.
It makes you think about these programs, these foreign exchange student programs.
Yes.
My daughter Louise is named after Louise von Schantz, who I know you saw in Sweden.
Right.
And she came and spent time with us she wasn't necessarily a foreign exchange student. She was like a family friend, but came and spent some extended time with my sister and I when we were in high school. And she was so cool. And Jim and I both we're always just like, Louise was so cool. She was like chill and kind and funny and smart. And so when we were naming our daughter, she was really the inspiration for our daughter's name.
Yes.
But these programs are getting to know people across borders and in different parts of the world.
Absolutely.
You know, I think about my time living in Canada. I actually met quite a few people who were from really far-flung places like Iran and, you know, just tons of people. And it really deepens your ability to care for people across borders. And like you said, like being with my dad, you know, all the similarities that we're teenagers, that at our core we're just kids working through the same issues, having the same challenges, that whatever country banner we stand under doesn't really define who we are as people. We're more human than we are a country or...
We share so many values together, and you have to be conscious about it. And these international ties that you have make you aware that we more or less share the same values, right? There are different cultures, of course. There are different religions in the world, but we all are humans, and we share certain common value altogether. Irrespective of what religious belief we are or what our cultures are, we are humans, and this is something that I have learned in that year. Not only meeting your folks here, but also meeting other students with whom I had contact throughout the year.
And then growing up and being an ocean away, but just heartbreak and loss and raising children and wanting your family to feel safe and secure. And so these fundamental, you know, loving one another, the things we go through in life are the same no matter where we're standing on the planet.
Yes. I tried to give on this adventure idea and this understanding to my children. My son was more or less a little bit more homebound, but my daughter, she was globetrotter-like, and she spent a year in Las Vegas. Also, not with American Field Service, but with a different organization, Youth for Understanding. And she came home and had the same experience, the same excitement, and it was a very emotional year for her too. And she still has ties with her host parents and her host sisters in Las Vegas. And she knows what it means to have spent a year in some other culture, in some other country, and it was the same experience, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that going into this conversation, but that this, you know, not just visiting a place, but living in a place is kind of, like you said, a strategy for world peace.
Yes.
Having an interchange of...
And it is different from making a vacation in the United States or somewhere else. If you live here and live an everyday life, you get a lot closer connection to the culture, to the people here, rather than spending 2 or 3 or 4 weeks in a hotel or on a beach or wherever you go.
And you know Ellie's moving to Germany, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is she going to be close to you? That's my cousin. So.
Yes, I know. Your cousin is having a year in Oldenburg, which is about 1.5 hours from my place to go. And she's just arriving. I think yesterday she arrived there. And her mother, my little sister Gina, her mother helped her and brought her over and helped her with the start in Oldenburg, and I'm going to meet her next week.
Oh, you are?
Yes. She's coming. Gina is going to go back via Hamburg. She starts in Hamburg to fly back, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to see you, Heinz. I'm going to come and we visit." And so she will come next week, and we spend a day, and then I take her to the airport the next day.
That's amazing.
And I hope I will see Ellie also during that year.
Yeah, Ellie's kind of a globetrotter. I mean, she's lived in different countries. She speaks fluent Spanish.
Yes.
She's
so
bright. And
so that goes on. I mean, this goes on, and it's so
we're interconnected.
Yes,
and our nations are intertwined, and they rely on one another.
It's so hard to describe. You have to really experience this kind of adventure yourself, and then you see, that's true. It's really a lot of going on in the world, and if you dive into it, you will make wonderful experiences.
Are you, and I can edit this, so if you're not, let me know, but are you comfortable kind of sharing, when you gave your toast at the reunion, that you had considered not coming, that you considered sitting this one out because of...
Yes, I have to be honest. And until about 3 weeks ago, I was not decided whether I were to come. Of course, the last reunion I was here was 10 years ago. This was in 2015. 2020, we had the pandemic,
COVID.
and that was difficult. So, and in those 10 years, a lot of things happened also here in the United States. And lately, you read these stories, you see news on television, which make you think. And I was afraid. I had an uneasy feeling coming over here. One of those feelings were, do I have to clean my mobile phone from any bad jokes, maybe about your president or something like that? I have heard that they might seize your phone, and this is something that I never had before when I came here. So I thought, no, I don't actually want to come. But then it struck my mind, I'm visiting friends here, I'm visiting family. And this is a much higher value than anything be above or beyond it. So that's made me decide, I don't have very much time maybe on this planet. So why should I stay? Because things are going on in the United States that I do not really appreciate or do not like. And so I came here and said, I'm going to see my friends. This is more important than anything else. And I'm glad I did it.
We are glad that you did too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that love between people across borders sometimes can override.
Absolutely.
And I don't know just how important that feedback is too. I really value that. Like, I'm always curious, like, what is the world thinking about what's going on? There's been this trend toward nationalism, and it seems antithetical in some ways to the spirit of America. We're a nation built through immigration, and all my grandparents and grandparents on the other side, like we were all first, second generation immigrants, and that, my grandparents' generation.
Yes.
And so
the American society is a mixing pot of various nations. Just as you say, you are a family of Swedish descent, and then there are Irish, then there are Italian, all over Europe and other countries, right? And you're not a closed shop. And things are alive and process, and things change, and you cannot keep these things together that you may like, and you don't want to share, you don't want to contribute, you just keep what you consider valuable, and then say, no, we don't want those people here.
Well, even talented medical school students, whatever. The new stuff coming out about the H-1B visas that will cost $100,000, just such a different energy toward the stranger, the foreigner, the immigrant. And it makes me sad to think that, if you were a little high school student today, maybe you wouldn't have been coming to the United States, or maybe it wouldn't be the same experience, and just how big a part of our lives you've been. I mean, you've just always been there as sort of a fixture. Not that we get to see you that often, but...
but if you can contribute just a little bit to this, and keep up these relations, and talk about what you think, and ask about what you think about it, and share your life, and share your problems, and contribute a little bit to everything, and that's so important. I mean, it's.
But I also think, and I know you don't want to talk about politics, but getting perspectives from people in your generation, because I think your generation in general is more quiet. You're not like us younger ones who are maybe out. This is what
you think. We also said we are not quiet when we were young. So that's something. We were also loud. When I was a student, we went out on the streets protesting like hell.
You did?
Yes, of course. Yes.
What were you protesting?
I was a law student. I did not protest.
Okay, the other kids were protesting.
Yeah, I just watch it. No, that was the sort of cultural revolution going on in Germany, especially at the university at the late '60s, and we had this hippie movement and sort of red revolutions there. But
somewhat parallel-ish to what was going on in the United States, but also Germany was in a big period of repair. I mean, just repair from difficulty, and
of course, yes.
I feel like I feel like it also gives Americans hope that at the end of a difficult period there can be reclamation and kind of a recommitment to goodness and fairness and justice, and that countries can go through really difficult things and get through it. I mean, I think.
Yes. I can't really comment on this, and I do not want to comment on this. It makes me very sad, and I know a lot about German history, of course, and there are developments that I just cannot understand, and which I never would support, and people. What makes me sad is the division in your society here in the United States, and which we have also in Germany now, because you see these right-wing movements also going on in Germany. You see it in Italy. You see it in France, and you don't know how this is going to end, and how we have to handle this. To come back to values that we once shared and that we once invented after we had a terrible war, and where we had a new start, also with the help of the United States. I remember this so well. I'm thinking of the Marshall Plan. I think of care parcels that we received, and this was like a new morning coming up there, and what's happening right now? Why does this happen? We don't. I don't know. I have no answer to that. You just can only contribute personally that you say, I'm not going on the street for political things, right? But we have discussions, of course, in Germany among people of my age, with people of younger ages, and in my circle of friends, we discuss these things, and we just shake heads and say, how can this ever happen? But we have no answer how we can stop this. Just by maybe speaking with people is not enough. It's not enough anymore, probably. Things have changed, of course, yes, also economic-wise. It's a difficult situation, economic situation in Germany with the migrants that we have a problem with, but we try the best to achieve at least something that makes people live decent in Germany, and we have done a good job, I think, so far. But Germany cannot solve the migrant problem.
Yeah.
This is a worldwide problem, where not only Europe is affected, right?
Yeah.
And you have that problem too in the United States with Latin American countries, or right?
Borders and security and cultures and
yes.
It is a problem, and I don't think we've figured out.
And aren't we
humans how
aren't
to.
we rich enough to share? Aren't we rich enough to share a little bit with somebody who may be in need? Is that a problem?
I mean, I think we can, but I'm probably.
So do I.
I think that the human brain is evolving. Hopefully, that our spirits and our consciousness can evolve to love one another and to not love based on what our primitive eyeballs can see.
Absolutely.
I think we are still we have programming in us that is probably there it's like, why is someone afraid of heights? Because there didn't used to be rails on the top of tall cliffs, you know. So somewhere in us, there's a fear of the stranger. It's probably a little bit baked into our DNA. Like,
Right.
if you see a little patch of holes or a spider, you know, the things that there's probably something that's like, move away from something that is different. And so I think our work as human beings is to elevate our consciousness and say, I can find connection and love and compassion for someone across the world in somewhat of an equal measure as I can for someone in my neighborhood.
Yes.
And that's a big task. But I think that might be what is stopping us is our programming is like, we're down here, and part of what is going to create peace in the world is like, we need an elevated programming. I mean, and I'm not that religious, but you know, my grandma Helen was very spiritual, and my grandparents on my dad's side were interesting because I feel like they were very ahead of their time in terms of things around civil rights and race, and you know, that Jesus loves everyone and that we are all created equal in his eyes, and this level of like kind of my grandma would say, like, if Christ was here, you know, he would welcome in the stranger. He would look around to say who's hurting the most, and that is the first place that he would go. That's what she believed. I mean, when there were times in her life where she had nothing and she gave away the little she had to care for others. It was not a wise financial decision for, but that's how she lived her life. And that's kind of this consciousness that doesn't exist in scarcity. I mean, my grandma got in a car accident one time and folded her hands in her lap and said, I will trust whatever the, you know.
Yeah, you got to have faith in human being. But,
but she had that abundance, or kind of, there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger judgment, there's a bigger sense of love, and there is not scarcity. There's a well of, it will be provided for you. And so, but I think that's an elevated consciousness, and that humans right now are really stuck on, if you don't look like me and you don't eat the food that I eat and you don't worship the same way I do, I'm not sure it's my responsibility to love you.
Sometimes I have the feeling that we have some sort of backward movement, not going ahead but going backwards again, because I don't know why. Maybe the world has become too complex to understand it, and there are not simple answers to complicated questions or complex questions. There is no simple answer, and this is something where we have to try to educate ourselves and also educate others and help others. Those who can should give, right? And we can share more than we are aware of, and not only in material value, it's just education. And then spread the word love around the world. This is something that we miss. And that's, I think, as I said, it's a backward movement in my eyes.
Yeah, love.
I have been brought up and I've lived for more than 70 years in peace. That has never happened to any generation in Europe, right? And now there's the danger of war again. And the danger of war today means that we are maybe at the threshold of World War III. And I don't want this. I don't want this for me, and I don't want this for my children and grandchildren. This is something that we have to be aware of. This is very close, and it's not just talking about it.
Yeah, we live on paradise, our planet, how beautiful it is, the biodiversity, we kind of get to choose if it reflects that, or if we turn it into a hellscape. And I think it's hard, because I think people who are very motivated by power can be very charismatic, very convincing. And so, when scarcity occurs, rather than solve the scarcity, which would mean giving up some power.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's really pressure the scarcity and create
Yes.
conflict there and
Yeah, yeah.
blaming one another. And, you're the reason I have problems and you're the reason I can't.
I can help you with your problem,
Yeah.
and you can perhaps help me with somebody else or something else.
And then as those problems become inflamed among people who live in scarcity, those who are already powerful have to become more powerful in order to control
Yes.
the parts of society that have been both made desperate and then need to be managed for their desperation. And so it's very complicated, but it just happens over and over again everywhere. So, it's...
And if you can contribute, this is wonderful. And I know what you are in, Annika, and I know that you really care for very, very many social matters in your city and your neighborhood. And this is wonderful. I mean, if we just need more Annikas in this world.
Well, the cool thing, is everyone has access to the internet, basically. And most people, even in Gaza, people have cell phones and can document and tell stories in powerful ways that we couldn't before. And one thing I worry about is losing our history, that the people who end up writing the history are going to pervert it or tell it in a weird way. And so even though you think I'm like making you be on my podcast, but capturing voices, how many more times will you come to Rock Island? 10, I hope. But, how do we capture voices of people who have wisdom and have seen patterns and maybe have important things to say, or just even sharing an experience of what it was like to live in Rock Island as a foreign exchange student in 1964. But
yes. And we didn't have any social media, anything not like this.
Yeah.
We had radio, we had records, that's it.
Yeah.
And still we communicated in a different matter, on a different level though. So young people even don't know what kind of possibilities they have through internet and social media. And they have to make use of it, but they have to make the right use of it. And as you said, it should not be perverted or misused or whatever.
But especially in your generation, and just capturing the stories, capturing the wisdom of how things were. In the United States, there's kind of a push right now to kind of dismantle parts of our history because they're unpleasant. And how do we make sure that we can tell really good stories and also hold on to the stories that weren't great, but that inform how we move forward in the world? And
yes, and believe in facts and believe in science. This is something you just cannot deny. This. This is something that I do. I don't follow storytellers. I need to know, is that true? Is it not true? And there are people now in power who tell stories where I said, huh?
And you need institutions. In order to have some guardrails, you need these institutions that have been there forever, that are established, that are nonpartisan, that have these serious government bureaucrats in them. You need academies and oversight committees, and and so when those become dismantled, it becomes really hard to be like, okay, what's the this person's saying that thing, that person's saying that thing, but what is the place we go to for the Center for Disease Control, or so starting to kind of degrade those is part of what will lead people to think.
And never stop to ask questions. Ask questions until you understand. And don't believe storytellers. There is not one truth. There is not one truth and only truth.
Yeah.
So that's something that I learned, of course, through my experience. And at my age, you don't believe anybody who just tells you something. You question it. You ask questions, and then you find out, is that right? Is that wrong? You have to make your decision whether this is right or wrong for yourself. But you have to ask questions, and you have to find out what is going on. Why is this going on? What is happening here?
Yeah,
and not just let it go and believe because others tell you must believe this.
Yeah. Do you remember the the musical The Music Man? Was that popular? I don't know what year that came out. Do you remember that musical? It's like Harold Hill, and he comes to this town.
No,
and
not really. No.
Oh my gosh, it
No,
reminds me
sorry.
of what's going on for us right now. It's like Harold Hill comes to town, and he tells the entire town that pool, the game of pool is going to ruin the lives of the young people. That it's going to it's going to like make them bad kids because they're going to be in the pool hall. And so he sets up this enemy, which is the pool hall and the pool table. And so he provides an alternate solution, which is musical instruments. And that, once all these musical instruments are delivered and these kids pick up music instruments, they're going to be saved from the pool hall. And so, but he's a con man. So he's starting to sell, he's taking money from all the parents to get money for the music instruments and telling a good story. And when are they going to come? And
no, I don't know this.
It's kind of an interesting. I'm like,
I don't know the story.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, and then there's a woman who he falls in love with, and that's what changes the main character, and he stops conning the city and ends up staying there. But sometimes I think we're just in an elaborate musical called
yes, well,
The Music Man. So you set up an enemy, you give a solution.
Wonderful.
Meanwhile, you
Yes,
empower yourself.
yes.
But well, I appreciate you so much, Heinz. I hope I didn't trap you into my podcast studio and make you talk about the world.
No. I just told what I can tell and what I think, and it is not my wisdom. It's just what I feel and what I have to say, and either you follow it and appreciate what I say or not. I cannot help, but it's my opinion. It's what I say is what I feel, and can't help. This is me.
Well, and it makes me feel good to know that you're in Germany and that you love this place so much that it probably deepens your appreciation for what happens in the United States beyond just being in another country and watching, but that you love people who live here.
Be sure I follow this every day.
Yeah.
Yes, be sure.
Yeah.
And I follow everyone in my family here as I follow those that are close to me in Germany. Thank you, Annika.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure being here.
It's been so fun, and we appreciate you keeping your eye on us from afar. And
I will.
I need to get to Europe, so I need to come visit you in Germany because I've never been to Europe at all.
Anytime.
Yeah. We were broke forever, and then I had too many children, and I am a little nervous to go that far away from them. So
your birthday is the same day as my son's birthday.
I know.
Right? You're
Yeah.
just 1 year apart.
And Steve Martin shares that birthday.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And Halle Berry. So,
Great.
we're in a pretty
Wonderful.
cool birthday club. So,
Yes. Yeah.
well, I love you, Heinz, and I'm
So
glad.
do I. I love you too. I
I'm-
love your family. I love your children. I love your husband, whose father was a student with me.
Yeah.
You know that your husband's father. I knew personally. He died tragically too
Yeah.
early.
Yeah. And you carry his memory with you, and that's so fun for Jim that you knew him, and so.
It's getting too emotional.
Yeah.
Now. We better stop.
Well, maybe I'll interview you again at the 65-year reunion. So.
There will be no 65-year reunion. This was the last biggest reunion of our class. We got to know this last night, and I cannot understand this. See, the next reunion would be 2030, and I'll be 83 by then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know whether I will make it that far, but I wish I could come. But I don't need a reunion anymore. If I come, I could just come here by myself for any reason.
Exactly. Well, we hope that you come back and that I
All
can
right.
interview you again. So.
Okay, we will talk in a couple of years again.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's go eat some Portillo's now. That sounds good too.
That sounds good.
So.
Yeah, your mom is fixing it. It's about time now to go home. Right. It was really a pleasure to be here in your little studio, and I just love it. And I didn't know you were doing this, and you had told me before, then I would have been prepared much better than just coming here and answer your questions and talk about things. It's really wonderful what you do here.
Yeah. No, you were wonderful, and it was perfect. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Heinz. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Heinzie Baby, or Brother Heinz, as my family lovingly calls him. We miss him already, but I know he'll be keeping an eye on us from afar, and I think he's already planning his next visit. If you like what I'm doing at Rock Island Line, head over to www.rockislandline.com to read articles, watch videos, listen to more episodes, and maybe even find out about upcoming events if I get my act together to schedule them. Today's episode was a little bit shorter, so I'm going to go off script here. I'm going to read you an article from the website. It's called Project 2025 Taylor's Version, and this is me trying my hand at political satire. So for those of you who don't know, you should look him up, but Jonathan Swift was a satirist. He wrote Gulliver's Travels and A Modest Proposal, and this is sort of modeled after A Modest Proposal, and it's just sort of meant to mock politics. That's what the point of satire is, so I'm not being completely serious here, sort of using sarcasm, humor, and absurdity to challenge current ideas. And it's called Taylor's Version because it's re-releasing something that already has a title, and also like Taylor Swift, Jonathan Swift. So the Swift is part of that as well. But anyway, here it goes. Project 2025, Taylor's Version. For preventing the excess mind virus which plagues American life from destroying our great nation, by Annika, 2025. It is a grievous spectacle in these United States to witness the unchecked spread of the excess mind virus. One cannot turn on a television or stroll through an affluent enclave without encountering the billionaires. Fleets of private jets with luxury vehicles, ballrooms plated in gold, surgically altered faces nipped and tucked beyond recognition. Though billionaires comprise only 0.00032% of the population, their influence metastasizes each year. They are celebrated in television, film, and on sporting fields, endowed chairs and entire academic departments trumpeting their plutocratic ideals, and create cryptocurrencies in their own image, seemingly pulling wealth out of thin air. Meanwhile, New York Times bestsellers such as Capitalist Baby slip into school libraries, indoctrinating the young into money worship. Scientists have hunted for a brain-based cause for wealth dysphoria, yet no scan or lab test can detect it. Reasonable minds must conclude this condition is chosen, not innate. Some argue greed lies on a continuum, but any clear-thinking person sees the binary. Either you are a billionaire or you are not. The most egregious offenses of this lifestyle strike at God and the Republic itself. What sin does Jesus warn of more than any other, if not the accumulation of wealth at the expense of loving your neighbor? No one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. Matthew 6:24 and Luke 16:13. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 19:23-24. Woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. Luke 6:24. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Luke 12:33. Our founders, too, sounded the alarm. Thomas Jefferson, influenced by John Locke's Life, Liberty, and Property, famously chose instead to write Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, declining to enshrine ownership above human flourishing. George Washington, in his 1796 farewell address, warned that the spirit of encroachment and overgrown wealth could corrupt the republic if it infected politics. Benjamin Franklin noted, "Money never made a man happy, nor will it. The more a man has, the more he wants. Instead of filling a vacuum, it makes one." Both Scripture and the Founding Fathers testify, unchecked wealth is incompatible with a just republic. What examples are we called to follow and emulate in our great Christian nation, if not those of Jesus Christ and of our Founding Fathers? The excess mind virus now infects the highest offices of the land. Children suffer the toxic normalization of capitalist greed and money worship modeled by leaders whose net worth soars as public schools crumble and families scrape to pay rent. Allowing billionaires' participation in a competitive market amid soaring inequality is about as fair as permitting a performance-enhanced silverback gorilla to compete in girls' sports. If we do nothing, democracy will wither under oligarchic rule. Therefore, it is necessary, in the most sober, patriotic spirit, to advance a new plan. Project 2025, Taylor's version. The core goals of Project 2025 define the wealth status as binary, billionaire or not billionaire. Amend federal law to define net worth over $1 billion as a risk to democracy. Eliminate civil protections designed to shield billionaire power. Redistribute wealth away from billionaires in keeping with Jesus' teachings on generosity and humility. Reshape education and culture policy to reduce oligarchy, greed, and exclusion, WOG or WOJ ideologies. Promote Christian ideals of love, neighbor care, and welcoming the stranger. If your brethren object, saying we must love our greedy neighbors, remind them of John 8, 1 through 11. While many focus on Jesus' mercy and call for non-judgment, it is equally important to remember that Jesus went to the prostitute and said, "Sin no more." We must match our mercy with truth-telling and offer the love of our honest message that a lust for excess threatens one's very chance for salvation through our Lord, Jesus Christ. Let us act before this contagion consumes the soul of America. The end. Hopefully that made sense. It was kind of taking the woke mind virus that Elon Musk talks about and replacing it with the excess mind virus and playing around with gender being binary and billionaire status being binary. In thinking about gender issues, the line is straight from Project 2020 now that children suffer the toxic normalization. That is a line from Project 2025 that I just replaced with capitalist greed and money worship instead of woke ideology. So, yeah, that's my first try at satire. And I'm thinking of doing some play on Gulliver's Travels, where Gulliver was like cryogenically frozen and ended up here where we live. And basically the story would be about a kingdom. The wealthiest people live in the inner part of the kingdom, and then as people get more and more poor, they're kind of out into the surrounding areas of the kingdom. And Gulliver is dropped off at the edge of this kingdom with the people who are most disadvantaged and struggling the most economically. And he witnesses them being robbed by the people in the kingdom. But the way that they are robbed is the people from the kingdom come out and rile up all the people in poverty to figure out what is in other people's underpants. You know, what's going on in there? Like, they need to know. And so the people on the outskirts of this village are basically starving to death because they're focused so much on what is in other people's underpants that they don't realize that all the money they have, all the wealth, the food, access to healthcare, it's all being taken away while these people are really distracted by what's in other people's underpants. So that's kind of in the style of Gulliver's Travels. So maybe I'll work on that story. But thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please feel free to reach out to me at Annika@rockislandline.com if you have any feedback about the podcast, people you'd like me to interview, just general feedback or questions or stuff you want me to explore in the city of Rock Island. That would be awesome. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you for caring about Rock Island. Thank you for loving your city. And I'll see you next week on the Rock Island Line.